Cornelius Vanderbilt was born in May 27, 1796. He lived in Port Richmond, Staten Island, New York, when he was in school till he was 11 years old. When he quit school to work with his father, legend has it that Cornelius Vanderbilt ran two mastered vessels known as the Ranger during the end of the War of 1812. Vanderbilt had learned the art of ship building. By the end of he had a small fleet of ships to ferry people from freights from Boston to Delaware Bay, making $10,000. He would eventually be given the name of Commodore, which he had embraced on December 19th, 1813. Much to dismay of his parents, Cornelius Vanderbilt married his first cousin, Sophia Johnson. The couple would eventually have 13 children, with 11 surviving to adulthood. As successful he would be in business, he was a terrible father and husband. A lifelong misogynist, he would had wanted more than three sons. Cornelius had paid a little attention to his daughters. Vanderbilt reportedly had his son Cornelius Jeremiah twice committed to a lunatic asylum. He would undertook the same course of action for Sophia and at one point as well. After Vanderbilt showed numerous interest in his family's young governess, in 1817 he see potential in technology. He would partnered in this Thomas Gibson's in a steamship business called Union Line. During his work with Thomas Gibson's, Cornelius learned how to manage a large commercial operation. As Thomas Gibson died in 1826, Vanderbilt wanted to buy the company, but Gibson's son didn't want to sell. Vanderbilt bought several boats and established that the dispatch law running in between New York City and Philadelphia. Through aggressive marketing, low fees, Vanderbilt forced Gibson's son to buy him out. Vanderbilt soon became known as sharp business acumen. During the 1830s, he built profitable shipping lines in the New York region, undercutting competitors' fares, offering top service. Competitors struggled to finally paid him to take his business elsewhere. When he then shifted his operations to the Hudson River, going head-to-head against the Hudson River Steamboat Association, another monopoly, capitalizing the populist language of President Andrew Jackson, and has named the service the People's Line, offering cheap fares for all. The association bought him out $100,000. Annual payments of $5,000, implementing his business models several times made Vanderbilt a millionaire. But wealth did not buy Vanderbilt's respectability. In the 1840s, he constructed a large but modest family home at 10 Washington's Place in present Greenwich Village. But the city's elites were slow to accept him, considering him uncultured and rough. His handwriting was nearly illegible, his grammar's atrocious and laced with profanity. Yet he didn't care. He despised attention, living relatively simple and disciplined life. In 1851, Vanderbilt expanded his shipping business, forming the Accessory Transit Company to transport passengers from New York City to Francisco via the Nicaraguan Seamus. Again, his timing was perfect. The California gold rush brought an enormous demand for the passage to the West Coast. Through offering the treacherous ride for users, the transit company was assessed by 1852. His competition had enough, but he offered $40,000 a month to abandon his operations. Nearing 60 years old, Vanderbilt was ready for something else. He purchased a large yacht, uh, christened the North Star. Would take extended family on a grand tour of Europe at the cost of $500,000. During the Civil War, Vanderbilt donated his fleet, largest ships, named the Vanderbilt, to the Union Navy. By 1864, he retired from shipping, having amassed nearly $30,000 in wealth. $30 million in wealth. At the age of 70, Vanderbilt turned his attention more closely to the railroads, acquiring New York and Harlem and the Hudson Line, which ran along Erie Canal, and then going after the New York Central Railroad. In ruthless act during the bitter winter, when I hope that didn't catch that in there. When the Erie Canal was frozen over, he refused to accept Central's passengers and freight, cutting them off in the connections to western cities. Forced to capitulate, the Central Railroad sold Vanderbilt controlling interest and eventually consolidated his hold on the railroad traffic. From New York City to Chicago, the conglomerate revitalized rail operations by stranding producers' timetables, increasing efficiency, decreasing travel, the shipment times. During the 19th century, as rapid development in technology and innovation enveloped society, many Americans sought meaningful forms of spiritual explorations. Some gravitated more than traditional religions, while others became fascinated in the occult. After his wife's death in 1868, Vanderbilt sought towards the end of his life. Vanderbilt had no plans to pass along his fortune to charity. He had lived most of his life relatively modestly, considering his stratospheric wealth. His sole extravagance seemed to be buying racehorses. However, 1873, his wife Frank introduced him to Reverend Holland Nimitz McTerry, who asked Vanderbilt to help him fund a Methodist university in Tennessee. Discussions went on for several years, and at the time of his death, Vanderbilt had promised a gift approaching $1 million for what he would become Vanderbilt University. In 1876, Vanderbilt became ill and began an 8-month death march. And keeping his pugnacious personality, he was a horrible patient, raging at the doctors, calling them old grannies, and at one point leaving his deathbed to lecture reporters who were standing vigil outside his house. He died on January 4th, 1877, presumably the exhaustion brought on by complications associated with his intestinal stomach, the heart disorders, which may also have been connected to syphilis, and his will. He left $90 million in the bulk of the estate to his son William Henry, who worked in his father's business, and $7.5 million to William's 4 sons. His other son, secretly Cornelius Jeremiah